Hey everyone, Brandon here. And in the month of June, I challenged you guys to make your own regional forms and regional fakes for a chance to have them featured here on the channel. So today I'm going to be reviewing some of my favorites from this challenge, as well as talking about the new challenge I'll be hosting for the rest of July. So make sure to stick around to the end to find out more about that. So without further ado, let's get into it with Luxray Draw Stuff's Ryukarian Yamask that is a normal ghost type. If you've been a fan of the channel for a while, you know that Yamask holds a special place in my heart, and this definitely isn't the only Yamask to make my favorites of this challenge. Anyway, it's holding a little scroll, and it has this hat. I think it's supposed to be like emulating a scholar of some kind. This is actually a reference to the Library of Alexandria. It says that this is a restless soul of a scholar from a library that was burned, and now they haunt the charred remains of said library. And that Yamask evolves into Papyrus, which is a mixture of papyrus and, you know, the regus suffix from Cafagrigus. I love how serpentine and even draconic that this design feels. To me, it feels very much in line with something Pokemon would do, like turning an object Pokemon into something more animalistic. Its shadow coming out like a slithering tongue of a snake is just so cool. Apparently, it's based on a yokai called the Kyo Rinrin, which is a haunted scroll. You know how a lot of yokais are based on haunted objects. It's also based on ribbon eels, and there's like a bunch of inspirations in here that all come together to make a really, really cool design. After that, also from Luxray Draw Stuff, we have Harassian Meowth, which is a fighting type, and also another Pokemon that is near and dear to my heart. Longtime fans of the channel will know that a Meowth of every type was like the first video to really blow up for me, and so I just have a special appreciation for Meowth forms. This Meowth form is based on Pumas and Incan warriors and the practice of wearing Puma skins as a, a display of power and wealth. I love what they did with the coin. It definitely feels very Incan inspired. And that Meowth form evolves into Protector. That Meowth form talked about how defensive it was, so taking the coin and turning it into a full-on shield makes complete sense, is actually a really great evolution of the concept. I mean, we've already had a shield dog, so like, why don't we get a shield cat too, you know? After that, from Wispy Dex, we have Karomaka. Instead of Darumaka, Karo is like the sound that frogs make, like a Japanese onomatopoeia. As you can no doubt tell, I am a huge Darumaka fan, so a Darumaka regional fake is right up my alley. And just look at it, it looks so happy. I love how joyous this frog looks. Karomaka evolves into Karotan, which feels very in line with Darmanitan, as well as like kind of Galarian Darmanitan with this like, what's it called? What's the thing that they croak with called? I can't remember. But this bulge, as it were, kind of feels in line with Galarian Darmanitan's beard. And as you know, this has to have a Zen mode, or should I say a Frozen mode, which is Poison Ice type. This line is based on wood frogs and their ability to adapt to harsh winter conditions and even snow. We've used this as inspiration for a Fakemon on the channel in the past, so it's really interesting to see it used in different and unique ways. After that, from Enlor region, we have a Rock Ice type regional Lunatone and new evolution Verglanet. I really like the use of the ice type here, kind of trying to evoke the icy coldness of space, and then transferring that ice typing into its evolution to make it reference ice giant planets like Neptune and Uranus. Go ahead, you can laugh. I said the funny planet name. But what really makes this design for me is the outline of the original Lunatone onto Verglanet. Having some semblance of its prior stage within its design, I think is just so cool. Pun intended. After that, from ND Drawing, we have these regional forms for Tinkatink, Tinkatuff, and Tinkaton. I'm looking at the post and I'm not seeing a type combo anywhere, but I'm assuming this is like Steel Fighting rather than Steel Fairy. Regardless, I love this design. I love the like scrappy feel of the blades, and even that like Tinkaton's blade kind of evokes Aegislash in that, like just a scrap together Aegislash. Maybe they pulled from Aegislash, which is kind of morbid to think about. I guess that would be just as morbid though as the way they use Corviknight in the Paldea region. I also adore this Tinkatink with a little knife. It's giving, let me see what you have, a knife! Also, I'm just now noticing Doublade scarves are functioning as Tinkatuff's skirt. That's crazy. After that, from Sashed Potato Fakemon, we have a regional Reuniclus line, which is pure steel type. I believe this is based on Ferrofluid, which kind of branches away from its Cell inspiration, but at the same time, this design is so cool that I just don't really care. In the design notes, Sash comments about how the Reuniclus line and the Gothitelle line are kind of counterparts in a way, and like the Gothitelle line is goth while being psychic type, and this kind of Ferrofluid inspiration kind of feels gothic in nature, so it's like shifting the counterpart nature to each other, if that makes sense. I kind of just said a lot of words, I hope they made sense. After that, from Bizarre Bunny, we have a regional fake of Mudbray called Sudbray, which is pure water type. And it's a pun, which y'all know I love, so this is based on a literal sea horse. I really like how they use different elements to fill this silhouette. Instead of like the muddy hooves of Mudbray, it has like bubbly hooves instead, which also kind of look like how barnacles will gather up on like wooden poles in the ocean. And obviously Sudbray evolves into Sudsdale, and this adds in the inspiration of one of my favorite mythical creatures, the Kelpie from Celtic mythology. I adore these two Pokemon so much. It just feels like a bunch of subtle changes combined to make one big change. And like the fact that its name is only one letter off from the originals, I just enjoy so much. After that, from Just the Dex, we have a regional Impidimp line that is Fairy Ghost type. And according to the post, this is based on Ratoncito Perez, which is basically like the European version of the Tooth Fairy. And you can definitely see it in this Impidimp. I mean, the wings on its back are no longer like demonic, and its front two teeth are very like vermin-esque. Here's Morgrem, and it just furthers upon the elements at play, as well as having like teeth in its hair and as like a skirt, almost like a waist bracelet of some kind. I don't know what the proper word for that is. And finally, it evolves into a new evolution, Dauntgnarl. Its name is a fun play on words like daunt as in like orthodontist, and gnarl as in to like make something corrupted, like it's gnarly. I truly can't tell if it's like torso area is like a mouth, or if it's just like designed to look like a mouth and, you know, it's just like a scare tactic of some kind. Either way, this design is very epic. After that, from Tombi region, we have the gorgeous Falcaroma. I assume this is grass or like grass fairy type because it doesn't say within the post itself. And my lord, is this just beautiful. This is like a work of art. Like, it's just straight up, not even a Pokemon, it just looks like a work of art. It is, some kind of flower evoking the look of Volcarona, which plants have been known to do. Like, sometimes bugs will emulate plants, but also sometimes plants will emulate bugs as a defense mechanism. The watercolory vibe of this design is just so pleasing to the eye. I just had to feature it. After that, from Plubcoal, with the help of Trainer Rex, we have a Dark Steel type C-Dot line. Dark Steel is one of my favorite type combos, as well as this is just like, this design is so epic and edgy. Like, I don't know, it speaks like to the inner edgelord within me. It has a new evolution called Ronoboke, which is based on Ronin. I really like that this almost feels like Greninja in a way. I mean, Nuzleaf has like the head leaf, but now is a scarf that comes around its neck, and then it fully evolves into that like same look with Ronoboke. It's like if Skarmory, Greninja, and Nuzleaf had a love child. After that, from Alterdal, we have Dreargle, which is a pure dark type, and it looks like instead of being an artist, Dreargle is an art thief. It seems as though this Pokemon is supposed to be like a doppelganger of Smeargle, and so it uses its status as looking like a Smeargle to steal art. I find this concept to be so fun, and the personality that Alter put into this art is just so great. Keeping up with the fun, we have Spirashoom, which is based on shoeies, aka pouring a beer into a shoe and drinking it. This concept would never make it through Game Freak, but it's just so funny to me that I had to include it. This hilarious entry comes to us from Builder Bob. Forgot to mention that, but it was just so funny that I had to just talk about that part first. Then from Stickamon, we have Frygar and Fryscore, which are water dark type. They take the inspirations from the Gligar line and shift them over to the Anomalocaris. Gligar and Gliscor have such a weird, interesting mix of inspirations that kind of shifting that into something different feels very natural and interesting to me. After that, from Really Big Art Guy, we have some more Convergent Pokemon with Celestike and Celestine, which obviously come from Mantike and Mantine. They're Psychic Steel type now, and I just adore this concept so much. Rather than being like manta rays, they are based on like little aliens inside of spaceships. Taking the Remoraid from Mantine and turning it into a Beldum underneath the wing of Celestine is just such a stroke of genius. It's actually shocking how similar the body shapes of those two Pokemon are that this fit that concept so well. I also just adore that inside of these like ships, it's just a little guy. As you can see, especially with Celestike, they're just little guys inside these big ships piloting them. I also neglected to mention that Beldum is also Psychic Steel type, so that's even more fitting. Then from Decrozmon, we have a Convergent version of the Litwick line. Litween is based on that kind of Japanese style of preparing hot dogs where they make it look like an octopus. Lampon, I'm pretty sure, is based on just the squids that they cook on sticks. Ikayaki, that's what it's called, Ikayaki. And Chandelusk is based on takoyaki. I think this concept is so fun, like basing it on something that is octopus-esque, then evolving it into more of a squid, and then evolving that into, you know, a squid ball dish, I think is so fun. Then from Rare Thing Art, we have a regional Bergmite, which is ground type, and there's also an Avalugg as well, but we're focusing on the Bergmite for now. I love the transition from icebergs to pyramids. It feels like a very natural slide from the ice type to the ground type, as well as them both being kind of like triangular based things. And is even furthered with this regional Avalugg, which is ground fire type. Honestly, this could have been a convergent version of the line as well. Like, it easily could have just been that. In all honesty, this feels more like a psychic type to me with its coloration and general vibe. Also, the addition of this kind of like the beard holder thing, I can't remember the name of it, that Pharaohs had. Just a very slight design choice that I like a lot. Then from the Cronio region, we have a fire water type Turtonator variant. I really like the shift from the original Turtonator, turning it from the spikes that it originally had into these underwater volcanic vents. Also, making its hands and tail more fin-like is a great touch. After that, from Pokepal 15, we have convergent forms for Flittle and Espathra, which are called Floatle and Espulra. They're both fairy water type and based on things in or around a pool. Floaties, inner tubes, pool noodles, towels. These are just such fun regional fakes and just such an interesting take on the concept. After that, Puntamons once again brought back in that animation skill with a rock-type Sobble based on glass blowing. I find this concept super interesting considering like how Sobble in water can kind of turn invisible, which basically gives it kind of a glassy appearance. Using its hands as a way of blowing bubbles, like as if it's blowing glass, I think is also really cool. After that, we have a convergent version of Pyukumuku called Piasco Poco. Piasco Poco, I think I got that right. It's a little bit of a tough one to say. Either way, it's grass type and it is based on potatoes and how those roots will grow out of them if you leave them out there for too long. To me, this feels like such a natural transition for a convergent Pokemon to take from Pyukumuku. And also, like, who doesn't like potatoes? Next, from Mangucon or Mangudex, we have a regional Corsola and New Evolution that are water psychic type. They're both based on brain coral, which I love the idea of taking something very literally, you know, brain coral, psychic type. The new Corsola evolution is called Cortisola, which is based on cortisol, the stress hormone. I mean, Corsola is under enough stress. On one hand, in Alola, it's being eaten by Marini and Toxapex, and then in the Galar region, it's being turned into the ghost type. So naturally, the Corsola line would have a lot of stress. After that, from J. Fakemon-san, we have Walksu, Walksur, and Walksaurus. Taking the Axew line and turning them into a bunch of walruses is something I didn't expect and didn't know I needed. They're all pure ice type, which is pretty fun considering the Axew line is all pure dragon type, so they're kind of an antithesis to that. I just love Walksu the most. Like, just how cute and bundled up it is and big. It feels like, you know, Spiel we already have as kind of like a proto, you know, Walrusmon, but having a baby Walrusmon is just so adorable. I just love it. Next, from D&D Fakemon, we have convergent versions of Drifloon and Drifblim, which are spiders. They're bug flying type rather than being ghost flying type, and I just think this is such an interesting concept. I like that they use the bottom of the balloon to harbor their eyes. They're called Spinloon and Spinblim, which is like based on spinnerets, and I especially love Spinloon. I mean, look how it's looking at you. It's just so adorable with those eyes. Spinloon almost feels like it could have branched off from Joltik with its general coloration and kind of cutesy vibe. Next, from Odd Designs, we have grass ghost type regional forms for the Bulbasaur line. I'm not certain exactly what type of flower this is based on, but I know there is a kind of orangish flower that every time that it blooms, which is rare, that it smells like a dead body. So I assume that's where the ghost type comes in for this line. I also like the little hearts on the face of each of these Pokemon. I know it has nothing to do with the ghost type, it's just a fun little detail. Also from Odd Designs, we have convergent forms for Magikarp and Gyarados, which are based on Koinobori or carp streamers. They're those kite-like things you see hanging from poles that blow in the wind. I find this to be such a unique and clever take on the convergent Pokemon concept. Taking something like a fish and basing a convergent Pokemon on something that shares its likeness is such a clever idea. I also really enjoy how they swapped the color schemes between these two Pokemon with, you know, the Gyarados equivalent being red and the Magikarp equivalent being blue. Next from Elo It's Me is convergent versions of the entire Applin line. Starting us off is Scooplin, which is an ice bug type and can evolve into 3 different things based on the topping you give it. Giving it a strawberry typing turns it into Scoople, which is a bug fairy type. Giving it the chocolate topping turns it into Scoopleton, which is a bug ground type. And giving it the cherry topping turns it into Duplin, which is also a bug ice type. And any of those evolved forms can evolve into Scoopillar, which is a bug dragon type, if you have 2 Scooplin in your party alongside it. This line is just so incredibly clever, turning the worm inside of Applin into a banana slug, and then having the ice cream involved as well to turn it into ultimately a banana split. All around, this is such a wacky and fun concept and just perfect for a convergent Pokemon. After that, we have a regional form for Trubbish, which is poison grass type, and then it evolves into a new evolution, Compodor. These are so fun, and the way that it's presented, like the presentation of this post is so incredibly well done and really drew my eye to it. I also really like how Compodor is snail-like, kind of how like it's a poison grass type, and it's like a compost Pokemon, so it takes a creature from nature and emulates it. Also, the banana on its head could also reference a banana slug, like our last entry. Next, from Triptidmon, we have Melini and Thornapex, which are grass poison type. I think this transition is super clever because Triptid took it from the Crown of Thorns Starfish, which Marini and Toxapex are based on, and transferred it to the Crown of Thorns plant. It's so fun and so smart and completely something that Pokemon would do. After that, from Fakemon, we have Porigami. This thing is a ghost normal type and is just such a good example of a convergent Pokemon. I mean, the name in and of itself just works so well. It's such a perfect mixture of concepts, taking it from this polygonal thing to this more folded paper aesthetic. It just works so well. I'm very curious what Porigami 2 or Porigami Z would look like if it would just be a more and more intricate paper crane. After that, yet again from Elo It's Me is a regional Yamask line that is Ghost Normal. Our second Ghost Normal Yamask line of the video, but this is such a different concept and so fun that I had to include it. The evolution to this Yamask is called Ruse Aurigus, based on the word ruse, which it's giving you this cardboard cutout version of the Yamask. It's actually a shiny version to try and trick shiny hunters. The entire line is based on set building and stage props, which as a theater kid speaks to me. And I love how Ruse Aurigus is basically playing tree number 1. The entire line feels very Paper Mario at the same time, which also just speaks to my heart. After that, from Kaifun art, we have Tandalaus, which are bug normal type, and they're based on lice. It's such a subtle, but at the same time creepy shift from mouse to louse. This one was a simple letter change, and I just found it so clever and funny that I had to include it. After that, from Hendo Sketch, we have convergent versions of Gulpin and Swalot, which are called Gulchi and Melot. They are both pure fairy types, and I really like Gulchi so much. Gulchi in and of itself is why I picked this. With it being based on Dongo, it's just so perfect. I think that's such a funny transition from a stomach Pokemon to something you put in your stomach. Melot could honestly be fairy fire type with it being based on a roasted marshmallow, especially with its little mustache being orange right here. If you made that just like a little bit more fiery, it could completely justify the partial fire typing. Heading over to Twitter, we have Matt4265, which have regional forms of Alomomola and Love Disc, which finally tie them together. They are Water Ghost and Water Fairy respectively, and they kind of act like Tatsugiri and Dondozo, and when they're together, they kind of trigger some special event, which you can see from the lower form where they basically combine to kind of almost look like a Mega Pokemon. It's called Alomomola Starry Night form, which is based on Starry Night from Van Gogh, which just is so cool. I really enjoy this mixture of concept as well as mixing in an art reference in there as well. Then from the Quasar area, we have a regional Flygon line that is Ice and then Ice Dragon type. I love me some Flygon. I love me some Ice types. These two together, perfect. I just love how floofy and happy Flygon is, as well as Vibrava. This whole line is just so much more happier being the Ice type for some reason. Flygon and Vibrava's tails looking like ice crystals is such a natural transition. Like, I didn't realize how well that would work onto this Pokemon. And like, look at my boy Trapinch. He's just a little snowman bug living his best life. Then from Antlers Andy, we have regional forms for Litwick and Lampent, which are based on fishing lures. They're both water ghost type, and it actually evolves into a brand new evolution, Chantilure, which, such a good name. Shanty as in sea shanty, lure as in like the thing it is, it's based on lures, all coming together to sound like chandelure. I love that wordplay. And the way the net of lures comes together looks like spider webs, as in like a chandelier that's been left alone for a while and has cobwebs all over it. Still referencing chandelure, but at the same time making it feel like something new. Next from Moigam, we have a convergent version of Lickitung called Liftaton, which is pure fighting type. It's based on war elephants and the Groot slang. The Groot slang, I believe, is from African mythology, and it's like an elephant with either a snake for a trunk or it's like got a snake-like body. I can't quite remember. Either way, Liftaton evolves into Hefty, which I'm gonna be honest, I don't know why you didn't keep the lift part, because you could have just made it Lifty, but you know, either way, it's a hefty looking dude. And it evolves into a new Pokemon called Golbinge, which is a fighting dragon type. This thing looks like an absolute terror to deal with, and I really like the gold additions to its color palette. Next up from Droodle, we have Ditto. which is a convergent version of Ditto. I've gone on record saying that I don't like regional forms of Ditto, but this is just so incredibly clever. As I said, his name is Dit-Do, as in baking dough, and when it transforms, it makes sweets versions of all of your favorite Pokemon. So here we have Gardevoir or Gardevour, there's Grimmsnarl or Grimevil, which is normal dark type, there's Mr. Rhyme or Mr. Divine, Golurk or Molurk, Dusknoir or Faunoir, Garbodor or Dirtador. I find this one especially fun because this is like my childhood where we'd have like the dirt cups with Oreos and chocolate pudding and gummy worms. In general, I find this concept so adorable, so clever, and so fun. Next, from Jumpy, we have Swam and Kamoth. These are both flying type convergent versions of Snom and Frostmoth that are based on owls. Something about the concept of Snom and Frostmoth being bugs which are prey to birds, so when they have this convergent version, they transfer from the prey to the predator. Like maybe Swam and Kamoth actually hunt Snom and Frostmoth. Snom and Frostmoth's ice type would probably help them in that situation though. Next, from Razor Ninja 56, we have some more convergent versions of Mantike and Mantine, which are Batike and Batine. Taking manta rays and turning them into fruit bats is such a fun concept. They're both fairy grass type. Honestly, I would make an argument for grass flying type considering they're fruit bats. But either way, these two are adorable and really great examples of convergent Pokemon. Then from Juno, we have convergent versions of Milcery and Alcremie called Mercury and Amalgamy. They're both steel poison type, and I find this shift to be so interesting, shifting one kind of liquid to a metallic liquid, which is mercury. They even made a G-Max Amalgamy, which is just like a torrent of mercury. You definitely would not want to be caught near this thing as soon as it starts Dynamaxing. There are also multiple forms just like the original Alcremie. You have aluminum, cobalt, copper, gold, silver, tungsten, and obviously this is bismuth. I just love this take on a convergent Pokemon and how they included so many forms. Then from Pokemon Horizons, also known as Cadia Dex, we have a convergent version of the Oddish line. They are all rock water type and they are based on jellyfish and coral reefs. There's not a Blossom equivalent, but these three suffice as really cool convergent Pokemon. Next, from the Comor or Quamor region, we have Blitzect, which is an electric bug type convergent version of Blitzel. I'm assuming they're based on lightning bugs, aka fireflies. And here is Zebsecta. A part of me wishes that they had added an extra pair of legs in the middle there, but also another part of me feels like that would be too much. Either way, these are some super cool bugs. Last but certainly not least, from Plasma Lizard, we have Woofer and Wagzire. Convergent versions of Wooper and Quagsire that are normal ground type, and they're based on dogs? Like, these two are so cute. I can't even handle it. As soon as I saw these Pokemon, I knew I needed to have them in the video. They are so cute. I love them and I knew you guys would too. And the way they perfectly embody the normal ground type with that, they're kind of like cream coloration accented by the brown muddy patterns along their fur. Those are my favorites from June's challenge. Now let's talk about July's challenge. We're a little late to this, I realize, so this is going to be a little bit more of a time constrained challenge, but the challenge for July is going to be called Digijuly. This month, the challenge is going to be to turn Digimon into Pokemon and vice versa. So whether you're a Digimon artist and you want to turn a Pokemon into a Digimon, or you're a Pokemon artist and you want to take a Digimon and turn it into a Pokemon, you can do both. Use the hashtag DigijulyMagic. The entry limit is 3, so if you want to make 3 Digimon, 3 Pokemon, 2 Digimon and 1 Pokemon, 2 Pokemon and 1 Digimon, you can do either of those things. The final day to submit your entries is July 31st. Like I said, I know this is a lot more time constrained. Some IRL stuff as well as trips got in the way of me doing this sooner, but please still feel encouraged to participate. If you've done this in the past, you can also submit those entries just like the previous challenges. Also, the rest of the videos for the month are going to be Digimon themed, and a certain Digimon YouTuber may be making an appearance. Anyway, thank you so much to our wonderful members whose names you can see on screen for supporting this channel with their hard-earned money, which you can also do by hitting that join button. Thank you so very much for watching, and I will see you all next time.